going home. You're going home. You're going home. We've all witnessed the darker side of our society, the homeless, the less fortunate that live in those parts of town you avoid for fear of seeing a side of humanity best left swept under the rug, out of sight and out of mind. Perhaps you've crossed the street to avoid any contact with a person you deemed unsavory. During civil conversation amongst your friends or family, you question why or how somebody would want to live like that. Surely they could just get a job and clean up a little. It's easy to have an opinion when you feel that homelessness is something that happens to somebody else, but the amount of Canadians living in poverty is shocking. In a 2017 online article by CTV News, it was reported that an astounding 4.8 million Canadians are living below the poverty level, as mentioned by a 2015 Statistics Canada report. The report goes on to mention that 1.2 million of those are children, which equates to 1 in 5 children in this country are living below the poverty level. Staggering statistics are no reflection of the homeless population, as they most likely would not be counted in any StatsCan survey, but clearly show that a large number of Canadians are dangerously close to becoming homeless themselves. In this documentary, we'll take a look at a 7-part series entitled Streets of Plenty, where the reporter lives a month on the streets of Vancouver to see firsthand what life is actually like on the streets. Next, we'll take a look at 2 documentaries showcasing 2 different men living a life of drug addiction and homelessness on the streets of Toronto. We'll get a glimpse into the day-to-day life of Rabbit and Jake. Additionally, we'll discover some of the observations of an organization called Here to Help that coordinates 5 mental health organizations that assist the homeless. In a documentary by Corey Ogilvie, Alex Kleider and Misha Kleider, they film life on the streets of Vancouver's east side, as Misha Kleider spends 30 days living as a homeless person. In complete contrast to the flourishing landscape of downtown Vancouver, the east side ghetto lays claim to having the highest crime rate per capita in North America. It is stated that 1 in 3 have AIDS, while 2 out of 3 have hepatitis C. Each homeless person costs the city of Vancouver $75,000 per year, while the average income for a single working Canadian is only $28,000. Unfortunately, 40,000 people were turned away for shelter in 2008, resulting in 40,000 people sleeping on the streets. Dr. Nita Palapu, urban health researcher, says that when people are forced to live in tight spaces like shelters or hostels, infection diseases are more prevalent. Hospitals are seeing people for infections in skin, pneumonia, and gastro issues. Clearly, hostels are not a very healthy alternative. Drug use becomes a big part of the homeless epidemic, with the city of Vancouver being well known for its open drug use on the streets. Will Small says that there's a shadow economy, or a street economy, where the homeless buy and sell items. Some of the items are donations, gifts, or stolen items. Items sold very cheaply, and money used mostly to buy drugs. The narrator tries crack for his first time to get the full street experience. It's fascinating to observe how he has an immediate transformation, saying that he feels at home in a dirty alley and that complete strangers feel like family. Drug use creates a secondary problem since you no longer need to just focus on food and shelter, but in addition, now need to spend a large amount of your day looking for money for drugs. In the narrator's opinion, he feels that addiction is the one common theme that united every homeless person he met. The narrator goes on to observe that life on the street catches up with you, and you end up sick and addicted to drugs at some point. The ultimate conclusion is that despite all the money being spent on homelessness, there is no improvement. Change needs to happen with each individual person, but that appears highly unlikely to happen.
You wake up every morning, you wash your face, you brush your teeth. You start smoking crack, you don't shower 3-4 days. Things just don't matter anymore.
In a very open and candid interview with a homeless man named Jake, he states how he has lived as a homeless addict on the streets of Toronto for the past 20 years. He explains that the only thing you are focused on is getting and using of crack cocaine. He goes on to say that the number one reason for people becoming homeless, he believes, is addiction. some type of addiction, either to money, to drugs, or to sex. It is clear from listening to Jake speak that the traumatic event 27 years prior when his brother died is a major contributing force to his ongoing addiction. The point a person becomes an addict is when the shift of that person being in control changes to the drug having complete control over that person's life. At the root of the homelessness lies drug addiction. The focus to numb feelings from past or present situation creates the spiral that perpetuates being homeless. When nothing matters but getting high, there becomes no priority given to income, housing, or personal self-care.
I know I'm gonna feel sick tomorrow. And I don't want to feel sick anymore.
Following a day in the life of heroin turned fentanyl addict Rabbit is very eye-opening. In a CBC Canada film experiment, the subject is given a camera for a day to document his life. What becomes evident is his sole focus for the day is acquiring and using drugs. He mentions a list of ailments he wakes up with daily as he withdraws or comes down, which includes cramps, muscle spasms, hallucinations, flashbacks, insomnia, and extreme fatigue. In the day and life of an addict, his priority is to reduce those symptoms and numb those feelings. He goes on to say, I want a better life for myself. I want a career. I don't want to be a career homeless person. I want a family. I want to have a partner. I want to have kids. I want a life. What I have now is not much of a life. He has reached the point of being tired of the life he is living, and perhaps this attitude is a chance to turn things around. But will there be available resources to help him get clean? If there is, I think he has become comfortable with the life that he has lived on the streets. Would the pressure of keeping up to society make him use again? While listening to Rabbit talk, I have learned how strong the pull of addiction can be. I don't believe that anybody would choose a life of poverty and living on the streets on purpose. The pull of addiction is so powerful that you are willing to live that life to satisfy your need to numb those senses. It is a common understanding that homeless people have a much higher rate of substance abuse than the general population. This leads to one question: which came first, the chicken or the egg? Does substance abuse lead to homelessness, or homelessness leads to substance abuse? The predisposition to addiction already existed before life on the streets. One thing that is clear, though, is that substance abuse becomes a very prominent factor in how the homeless cope with life on the streets. In what seems to be a stunning revelation, 2/3 of homeless people have stated that alcohol or substance abuse has been a contributing factor in their lives long before they became homeless. It is very evident that drug use is a poor method of dealing with the challenge of everyday life. Most people end up in an addiction situation, leading to being homeless because of an inability to cope with stress or situations in their life. If somebody thought they had hit rock bottom, they still have much further to go once they hit the street and their addiction consumes them to a much bigger degree. At this point, the vicious cycle begins. A proven method of treatment is that stable housing is a positive contribution to success in ending homelessness and addiction. Research shows that it decreases the risk of relapse. Ending homelessness seems impossible without eliminating addiction, as being homeless leads to drug use as a coping mechanism. There needs to be a dual approach to this problem, with the focus being placed equally on housing and addiction. There needs to be a distribution in social spending that is better spent focusing on education to the general public about life skills as a preventative measure. A narrative essay entitled When All of Us Are Home, written by the author Sister Mary Scullion, we are shown an interesting perspective about equality, as she draws the conclusion that we are never truly at home unless we recognize that we are all equal. It is Mary's view that society puts a priority on those that are productive and fortunate, yet looks down on those facing struggles with homelessness. She states that I believe that every man, woman, and child possesses gifts, worth, and potential. Everyone matters. And goes on to mention that none of us are truly home until all of us are home. It's the assistance of people like Sister Mary Scullion, or organizations like the United Way, Here to Help, the Busby Center, among others, that go a long way to helping. But is it truly enough? It was mentioned that help begins with change in each individual person, although I find that considering the circumstances, the people that need help the most are in need of better direction. To see positive and life-altering improvements, we need a stronger economy to prevent people from falling off the radar. More involvement from our government and agencies. Education teaching better coping skills. improvements in social acceptance, and a zero tolerance on drug use and abuse. Thank you for watching.